So, Loki was born on Jotunheim as the son of the frost giant king, Laufey. Small and weak for a frost giant, Loki was abandoned by his father in a temple and left to die. In 965 AD, not long after the war between the giants and the Asgardians, Loki was found by King Odin. Adopting Loki and using sorcery to alter his appearance to make him appear to be an Asgardian, Odin raised Loki and his biological son, Thor, with his wife, Frigga. As they grew up, Loki always felt that he was always living in Thor's shadow, envious of the fact that Thor was meant to be king instead of him. As Odin often spent time with Thor, Loki grew closer to Frigga and would watch her cast magic, and was impressed when she made fireworks appear from her hands. Frigga then informed him that one day he could perform magic as well, assuring him that he could do anything he wanted to. Believing that Loki might feel inadequate due to Odin and Thor's accomplishments, Frigga decided to teach Loki everything she knew about sorcery, and he eventually became an expert in Asgardian magic, gaining the ability to conjure illusions of himself and create weapons. Once, when Loki and Thor were still young, Loki took advantage of Thor's love of snakes and used his skill with illusions to become a snake. When Thor picked up the snake to admire it, Loki dispelled the illusion and stabbed Thor. In another instance, Loki turned Thor into a frog for a brief time. After transforming Thor, Loki sat on the throne of Asgard and pretended to take over the crown. Then Frog Thor appeared, and Loki was pummeled by him and was forced to turn him back. On another occasion, Loki froze Thor with the casket of ancient winters. Kid Loki was already a menace. Later, Odin brought Thor and Loki on a visit to Earth, where the Asgardians taught the Norse people their language and culture and displayed their abilities. This caused the Norse people to believe the Asgardians to be deities and bestow upon Thor the moniker God of Thunder, while Loki became the God of Mischief due to the various tricks and illusions Loki displayed, as they would then be depicted in human stories and books for centuries to come. However, his origin in the comics is a bit more interesting. So, in comics, Loki is the son of Queen Farbauti and King Laufey, the leaders of the giants of Jotunheim. He was born small, which was an embarrassment to his parents, and was segregated from other giants. At the same time, using magic, the future Loki came to Jotunheim's past, tricked Bor, the father of Odin, and turned him to snow. As Bor withered, he asked his son Odin to help him, but his son ignored him. Future Loki then haunted Odin in the guise of Bor's ghost. Years passed, and eventually, future Loki tricked Odin to adopt the son of a fallen king he would have killed, and that would pay his debt. Then, he went to the present Loki, explaining to him how to become a god by tricking Odin and Laufey. Kid Loki then went to Laufey, giving him information on where Odin would be positioned in the following battle and taunting him to attack him. As he hinted, Laufey was a coward. His father struck him, but decided to slay the All-Father Odin. Odin confronted Laufey and left him injured. Loki rushed into the battlefield, faking grief and rage, only to make Odin recognize his strength and press him to adopt him. Out of a combination of honor, pity, and obligation, Odin adopted the boy and raised him alongside his own biological son, Thor, while future Loki came to punish Laufey for his past brutalities. Throughout their childhood and into adolescence, Loki became resentful of how differently he and Thor were treated by the general Asgardian citizenry. Valuing great strength, tenacity, and battle bravery above all, the Asgardians clearly favored Thor. Loki's gifts, however, lay in other areas, most notably sorcery. Possessing a natural affinity for commanding great magical forces, he schemed to use his power to destroy Thor and become the most powerful in all of Asgard. So the comic's origin basically explains that Loki planned everything so that he can get adopted by Odin, and it's kind of a time loop thing for him. A very frequently asked question about Loki is whether he can ever lift Thor's Mjolnir or not. But it's not a simple yes or no answer, so let me explain. Basically, In the words of Odin, inscribed on the Mjolnir, it says, "Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." There have been a lot of debates on how the Mjolnir determines who is worthy and who is not. Even the heroes in the MCU get confused as to how the enchantment works, with Tony Stark even arguing that the elevator may be worthy because it can, technically, lift the Mjolnir. For now, there are two ways to use the Mjolnir: lift it or wield it. Those who lift it may be able to do so, but they cannot possess the power that the Mjolnir has. Vision was able to lift it, to everyone's surprise, in the Age of Ultron, but not use its power because, possibly, the Mjolnir detects him like another inanimate thing. The same logic applies to Magneto, who can lift the Mjolnir, but only by tapping into its metallic composition. On the other hand, those who wield the Mjolnir are a different topic. This requires being worthy. In Endgame, Thor himself suspected that Captain America may possibly be worthy of wielding the Mjolnir, and true to his gut, Captain America is worthy enough that he can not only lift the Mjolnir, he can also summon the power of Thor to produce or call lightning from the hammer. So for Loki, his case is different. Yes, Loki was able to lift Thor's hammer in the comics. Loki lifted the hammer at a time before Odin put an enchantment on it, when it was, technically, just a plain hammer and nothing magical yet. In the Axis crossover in the comics, an inverted spell also allowed Loki to lift the Mjolnir, and this time he was worthy because, at such a time, Thor was deemed unworthy, and upon the reversion spell taking effect, Loki's worthiness ended too. There is, however, one scene in the Loki series that points to a variant of Loki being able to lift and wield the Mjolnir. This variant seems to be a combination of Thor and Loki, and the hammer he holds is Mjolnir's variant as well. And now that we are exploring the multiverse in Loki, there is a very high possibility that we might see a version of Loki who is worthy and can wield Mjolnir just like Thor, or maybe the Loki that we are following right now will himself become worthy of wielding Mjolnir. Many fans forget that Loki is a frost giant, and being a frost giant also gives him some advantages over others. Frost giants are naturally able to live for thousands of years. Loki, who was born in 965 AD, lived up to 2018 while still keeping a relatively young appearance. Since Loki had been enchanted to look like an Asgardian, Loki's frost giant features only came out when he was in contact with frost giant magic, such as when he utilized the Casket of Ancient Winters or when he was afflicted with the frost giant's touch. Though he is surpassed in physical capabilities by Asgardians, he can easily overpower grown men such as Tony Stark and keep up with enhanced individuals such as Captain America. Despite his astounding resistance to injury, it was still possible to injure or even kill Loki. However, due to his frost giant physiology, Loki healed at a rate much faster than that of humans. Hence, Loki was quickly recovered back on his feet even after being brutally smashed multiple times against the ground by Hulk. His metabolism enables him to rapidly regenerate damaged tissue much faster and more extensively than a human being and Asgardians. However, through the use of his sorcery, Loki's ability to heal himself is far above that of other Asgardians. Loki's bodily tissues have roughly 3 times the density of the same tissues in a human being. While he has the looks and physical proportions of a much smaller person, the increased density of his body actually makes him several hundred pounds heavier than he appears. This increased density also contributes to his superhuman strength to a limited degree. The tissues of Loki's body are superhumanly durable and are roughly equal to those possessed by the average Asgardian male. However, at times, Loki had imbued himself with magical abilities that enabled him to withstand injuries that would prove fatal to another Asgardian. Loki's magical abilities are not limited to making illusions. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and when he became the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, all of his abilities were boosted to a different level. This happened when Vishanti gathered the world's greatest sorcerers together and made them compete in a mystical game to see who would be named that realm's Sorcerer Supreme. Stephen won the first 2 tournaments he attended, but the rules seemed to change for his third. After beating his competitors and ultimately coming out victorious, the Vishanti decided to choose a new Sorcerer Supreme, Loki, who not only wasn't competing, but wasn't even invited the first place. Vishanti's reasoning boiled down to no longer wanting a mortal to hold the role of Sorcerer Supreme. Of course, since Loki is a god looking to make amends for the sins of his past, he was the perfect candidate. While this is largely just a title and doesn't grant him any extra powers of his own, there are a few new tricks that Loki has up his sleeve thanks to the Vishanti. By giving him the title, some of his existing magics are boosted, and of course, he now has access to the Sanctum Sanctorum with all the books and magical items within that fantastic place, which he can use to learn and manage spells that he has never heard of before. In short, this is Loki, but more magically powerful than ever before. Another very interesting ability that Loki and all other Asgardians have is called Allspeak. So when Loki is trying to communicate with aliens and beings from other worlds, one power that comes in handy is the Allspeak. The Allspeak, or All-Tongue, allows Loki to communicate in any language. In other words, anything he hears is automatically translated for him to understand, and anything he says can be understood by a group as if Loki was speaking in their own language. It's a gift that all Asgardians share, and it certainly comes in handy for many diplomatic situations. Given the amount of off-world adventures that Loki embarks on, it makes sense for him to have an ability like the Allspeak. After all, it wouldn't make much sense for beings across the galaxy to speak English as a primary language. Even so, Marvel does have some other ways of getting around language barriers. Devices like universal translators and translator implants help many of Marvel's cosmic characters interact with other alien races. The X-Men even have a mutant called Cypher, who can subconsciously translate different languages. Amidst all of the action that occurs in comics, it's easy for the Allspeak to slip by unnoticed. After all, fans don't tend to see it in action nearly as much as Loki's other powers. Still, it serves as a good reminder that Loki is more than just an illusionist. Other than this, I don't think there is anything very interesting about Loki's anatomy. So yeah, that's all for this video, and thanks for watching.